The grounds for divorce in California are generally two. One is irreconcilable differences, and the other is incurable insanity. And although many people think that their spouse is crazy, 99.9% of cases are irreconcilable differences, which is just a catch-all phrase. It just means you and your spouse can't get along anymore, and that's what you're filing on. Some irreconcilable differences are people just don't get along, they've grown apart, there may be money issues, there may be financial distress issues, infidelity, gambling, alcoholism, drug abuse, those kind of things. It's basically a catch-all for everything of why you're not getting along with your spouse and why you're not together. And I always laugh because I see people, Hollywood people, that say, well, on the news they say people are getting divorced so-and-so for irreconcilable differences. Well, that's because there really is no other basis to file for California divorce other than irreconcilable differences. Generally in California, assets are divided pursuant to community property law, and that means that during the divorce, any assets or debts that are incurred or acquired during the marriage are equally divided. So one spouse might be getting X amount of assets, the other spouse may be getting a certain number of assets. I always say you don't take a chainsaw and divide everything up equally. You basically will take some assets, the other party may take some assets. So what you're trying to do under community property law is to equally divide the assets and the value, more importantly, of the assets. So that means if somebody gets more of certain assets or debts and then the other, you try to do an equalization payment so that you are then equally dividing up the value of the assets. In California, people can apply for and seek to get alimony, or what we call it is spousal support. And what that means is that during the marriage, somebody may owe the other spouse, because there's a difference of income that was during the marriage, there may be a certain amount of disparity of income between the parties. Maybe one spouse was formerly a stay-at-home parent, what have you, or just basically one may be making a lot more than the other. Spousal support is meant to bridge that gap so that when you're going through a divorce and after, you're basically trying to compensate and deal with that situation so that somebody that may have been a stay-at-home parent for 10, 20, 30 years is not going to get penalized for that by now trying to get into the workforce, not having the skills and background that the other spouse has. And so the idea with alimony or spousal support is to address that issue in a fair way so that the other spouse has an equitable resolution. The basics of custody are twofold. One is legal custody and the other is physical custody. So under legal custody, that's defined as either sole or joint legal custody. And what that means is who's making the decisions regarding the health, education, and welfare of your children. And so if it's sole custody, which is more rare and only in certain circumstances in California, that is where one party, one parent has sole making the responsibility for decisions of where kids are going to school, what kind of medical treatment they're getting, and so on. In most cases, unless there's some reason to not award it, it's joint legal custody, which means the parties need to work together. Parents need to make decisions jointly for where their kids are going to school, what kind of medical treatment they need, what doctors they're going to, and so on. If you have any other questions concerning the topics we just discussed, feel free to contact us at Maggio Law, Orange County Divorce Attorneys.